Well, hello again there. Long time no see. As you can probably tell, a few things changed since we last spoke. One of the things might be you probably remember we were going to launch a rocket this session. Well, I kind of forgot we're in the desert, and I went a little too far contributing to the environment with my excessive pollution. And the neighbors are less than happy about it. So before we can launch the rocket, we now have to actually address the most important thing in every engineer stay on novice: home improvement. In all seriousness, this is a pretty good example of how things rarely go how you plan, so don't get discouraged by change. Even if it makes you into a liar, and you had another video right after you claimed the previous video was the second to last, and now you look like a fool for taking the time to make things proper and you can't redeem yourself. Which wouldn't be me because of one fact: I'm going to teach you more about trains to make up for the extra video, and we're going to label this video as a bonus video. You get sucked into trains more, and I dodge being a liar. Everybody wins. So, without further ado, let's talk about what we've done so far to save a bit of time, and what we want to do now to make our train experience a bit better. The main goal that we have at this time is pretty simple. We need to set up a perimeter to keep colonizing biters at bay, and to soak up attacks when our pollution grows too vast. To do this, we've talked about a few options that we have in the past, but for now we're going to keep it simple. We'll set up a basic barrier consisting of a single solid wall and some small wall protrusions in a checker pattern. This is often referred to as a dragon's teeth defense, and I highly recommend doing something similar yourself. This wall will then be supported by two weapon systems. The first is the trusty gun turret, which we're going to be feeding red magazines. The reason we're doing this is simple. We want to reduce the strain on our power grid, so having spikes in the electric network isn't really ideal. Because of that, I want to avoid laser turrets in this case, but you can always use them if you like. Second, I want to follow this up with flamethrower turrets. These bad boys are by far my favorite weapon in the game, until you get to Space Age. There's some really nasty stuff when you get to Space Age. These things are going to coat an area in sweet, sweet napalm. This is incredibly valuable when dealing with large hordes of biters running down on you, and can save you some red ammo over a long run. We feed these with pipes and belts, and we also add in some roboports and a few construction drones with a singular purpose: maintenance. You see, something a lot of people tend to forget about defense is that you need to treat it like a barrier against an ocean, and as I understand it, once you set it up, it'll certainly hold at first, maybe even for a long time unchecked. But if you don't take care of it, because of the constant crashing and beating of the waves, though they have a minimal effect, cracks will still begin to form, and if you don't treat it before the cracks get too big, you'll be out of luck. This is particularly important if you're playing Space Age after this tutorial, and plan to leave the planet entirely, which I do encourage. You want a system that can support itself in the long run. The last component of any perimeter defense, no matter what you choose for it, and the most important, is the logistics. If you have a smaller area, it can be wise to use drones to simply transport material and maintain the defenses on site. However, if you're like me, you don't want to be restricted unless you impose these restrictions on yourself. Giving yourself more space than you think you're going to need is a wise decision, which is why we need to scout out around us. As you've seen before, we used to run a long power line from our main area out to the edges, which can be tedious and resource intensive. So instead, I use this solution: a little package for powering a radar dish, fitted with solar panels and two accumulators. This doesn't last the night, but it does extend the operating time of the radar, which equals faster exploration you can have while doing other tasks. I highly recommend a similar approach if you haven't tried it yet. It can save you a great deal of time. Fortunately, for the purposes of this video, I've already done about half of the prep work on the larger bulks of the defense here. So we can talk about the remaining implementations with the exploration that we have done, and we can also go over the actual logistics setup for it, not just the bare-bone basic patchwork logistics that we have set for it. In order to properly set up logistics, we're going to have to create a new system capable of being tuned to other similar applications, but we're going to keep our scale small and only for perimeter defense, purely for these purposes of understanding what is going on. We are going to be talking about train interrupts in this particular case, and we're going to get into a little bit more detail on how to finally control the trains and your train stops to make them run a little bit better and do exactly what you want, even if it's different from what I want. So, let me take you over to the live recording of me, and we're going to take it from there. Alright, and with that, here we go. This time I've decided to include my face as a little bit of a apology for not having the video out right on time, so you get to see a little bit of what I look like if you don't see the lives all that often, but I'm here right now. So, we're going to go through and we're going to kind of break down the problem that we have at the current time, and then we're going to approach it however we can here. So, first thing I want to do is I want to kind of showcase what we've done so far. Clearly, you kind of saw in a little bit of the video in the background, we've came through and we have actually placed this particular area. We've fed it some magazines and we've also given it some oil. So this is actually in a working order. This is as well. This one is not, but I wasn't really having a lot of issues with this so far. And we've got this section here done. Now, one of the things that I kind of wanted to talk about was when you're on one of these desert maps like this, sometimes you're going to have issues such as having having large land masses that you have to actually cover and defend. So we try to use some of the walls a little bit to our advantage, but it can be a little bit tedious. I wasn't super lucky on the wall placement and the cliffs with all this time, but the only thing that I wanted to bring up is, again, these little dishes that I put up earlier while I was doing stuff live and on stream have now allowed me to get a better picture of what's around me, and we have been blessed with a large water mass over here in the ocean, if you will, and a dead end for things. That's very good, because it means that we don't actually have to defend this, we just have to clear it, I hope. I'm seeing a little bit of land right here, so there might be a small area that we can just kind of lock off, but that is going to save us a huge amount of time to take care of that. We then look over here, we can see, oh yeah, there's a little bit of water here and stuff. We can kind of use the water as a barrier, because water is, in the end, one of the greatest barriers that you can get. But then we look over here, and things aren't looking quite as promising. We've got some pretty large nests over here. And as you can see on the map, they only get bigger and bigger. So, we want to try to come through and address a lot of these points. And right now, this isn't a huge deal. Radar will also let me know when there's colonizers that are getting too close to my pollution in some of these areas. Ideally. So like right now, I've got, this is a problem nest that I need to go and take care of, and we are going to do that tonight while we figure out a few things. So, taking a look at this, you can see we have our bare-bone basic train system right now. We have our ore trains that we kind of talked about train groups a little bit. If you don't remember fully about that, we are able to assign groups to trains, and then those trains are actually able to share properties and settings with each other and all that, right? One thing that we have not talked about, however, is the beauty of the train interrupt, right? We alluded to this a little bit before, but at the time, we were just introducing everybody to trains. Now we're going to start getting into a state that we can actually delve into trains a little bit deeper. But before we do that, we need to make sure we don't have any random attacks come to us. So what we're going to do is quite simple. We're going to do our little trick as we did before. Holding left alt, I'm going to designate that as a problem zone I need to go take care of. I'm also going to do a little patrol bit here, here. I'll probably check down here as well, but I kind of doubt we have any issues there. We should be good here for a little bit as well. But I want to kind of go up at the top, clear out this nest, and then that nest, probably this one as well. and work our way down this way. So that's probably going to be sped up on your end, but I'm going to blast some music. I'm going to get to it. If I say anything pertinent, of course, I'll always make sure to let you guys know about it. But for now, we're just going to go through. We'll take care of this, and then we will proceed with maybe even coming out and manually scouting a little bit, praying that there's a choke point up here somewhere, but I kind of doubt it. So, without further ado, let me begin. Now, we've solved that. That gives us a little bit of time to work on a couple things. So, number one thing right now is we have a way to send resources to this area, in general, this area. We need to hook up this one, but then this will be fine. It's a pretty small area. I'm not super worried about that one. However, in order to feed all of this, right now we have a single train that handles the ammo, and then we have a single train that handles the fuel, and we're using the heavy oil right now, which isn't always the most ideal fuel source, admittedly, for flamethrowers, but I do like it myself. The other issue that we run into is everywhere we go, we're fueling trains like this. We've got like a coal line over here, coal line over there. In some cases, let's see, I think that's another coal line there. But like up here, we've got a box with solid fuel, which is a little bit better than coal. But we want to do rocket fuel for all of our trains if possible. The problem that we're facing is in order to actually fuel all of our trains with said rocket fuel, we don't want to just run around and put everything down. We don't have the logistic drones to do that automatically because we are running on space age, which means that in order to unlock that level of drone technology, we will have to go to space, which we haven't done yet because we are keeping true to a vanilla format right now. So, what do we do? To put it simply, we are going to start our train logistic upgrade by doing an upgrade for all trains in the network. That is going to be the tried and true earliest thing that everyone will do with a train interrupt. A train supply. And when I say a train supply, I specifically mean a refueling station. So, we're going to come over here, and we're going to determine a couple things first off. We know that this is a little bit of an offshoot right here. This is a specific stop, U-turn. We don't want to do it right there. We do have this rocket fuel nearby. But what we do have is this little station right here. This is a common area that most trains will pass through at some point or want to pass through. So it's not unreasonable to assume that most trains would want to probably come over here. So, we're going to build it off of this. This is still going to be a patchwork solution for the most part, but it's going to be one that'll work for our purposes. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of pull off from the main line like so. I'm then going to make a train stop, and I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to have it come back. In a fashion such as this. And this is really all we need. What we're going to do here is going to do a refuel station, is what we'll call it. Okay? So what are we doing here? The whole purpose of this station is to simply load the locomotive at the front with fuel. And that fuel is going to be right here. Okay? Now, in order to actually make this work out for us, there's a couple things that we're going to have to do. One of them being, because we have trains that have multiple different fuel types in here, we need a way to get that fuel out. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this with another chest, and this one is going to use a filter. And with the filters, you can actually set these automatically. It defaults to a whitelist. We're going to set it to a blacklist. Specifically, we're going to blacklist rocket fuel. Basically, we want to pull out any fuel that isn't rocket fuel immediately, and we want to get it put into this steel chest. Now, we are not going to enable a train limit to this because we want any train that needs to refuel, we want it to come over here, and we don't care how long it takes as long as we get trains coming over here and refueling at this time, right? So, what are we going to do? First, we're going to go to our trains menu, and we're going to look at our groups. So we can see here that we've got a copper ore train that has 3, heavy oil suppliers has 1, iron ore trains have 3, red ammo suppliers has 1, and then I have a couple with no group assigned, and we're going to use one of these non-assigned groups in order to showcase this. So, we're going to come over here, and I'm going to look at the coal train. So you can see here that right now we have it hooked up to actually accept coal constantly. So this is fine for the most part. I'm also just going to pull the solid fuel off that right now. If we look over at our handy Factoriopedia, which I highly recommend doing, we can look at coal, and we get a little data sheet, basically. We see that coal has a fuel value of 4 megajoules, right? And that's kind of the majority of what we get right here. We see what it's gathered from, where it appears, mined by, yada yada yada. It doesn't really matter. We know that it's burned in trains. If you look over at our solid fuel, you're going to see here that this actually now has a 12 megajoule value, meaning that it lasts, in theory, 3 times longer than your coal is going to last. It also has better vehicle acceleration and a higher vehicle top speed. You can see here it's 100 megajoules, 180% acceleration, 115% top speed. We could go even farther to the nuclear fuel, but we're not doing this right now. We are sticking solely to the basic rocket fuel. Since we're already making it, we know that we have a supply for trains. So I'm just going to cut this. We no longer want to feed coal to that. Instead, we want to create an interrupt using our coal train. So let's come over here, and we see it's going to get full. I'm going to turn it off for just a second because we need to add an interrupt. Now, an interrupt is very interesting. The way that this is going to work, quite simply, is we're going to give it a name, and this we're just going to call it refuel logic. I like to say logic with stuff because it lets me know that this is something that has some conditional value or something with it. It's more for my brain. You can call this anything you want. The name does not matter. What we're going to do here is right now I'm going to click on allow interrupting other interrupts. This isn't important yet, but this will become important later because this is something that's very critical. We want this to be something that interrupts anything else, and we get this done now. I'm going to simply say in this list of conditions here, and there is a lot of conditions that you can go off of. It's a very versatile thing. I'm just going to simply go into the fuel we'll just do all locomotives just to be safe, And then I'm going to designate rocket fuel. And if we have, let's play it somewhat, we're not really too far anywhere. I'll say less than 3. Arbitrary number right there. It's more important if you have like long distances to understand that you want there to be enough fuel there at all times. So 3 is a good value. Which right now it's going to have no rocket fuel at all. So it's going to want to go and do this. And then the station is the station that we actually go to and add to our schedule once this trigger happens, right? So we have our resupply station, or refuel station, excuse me. And then we're going to set a condition, which is just full fuel. That we're fully fueled at that point, okay? So I'm going to save this interrupt. Now, I'm going to turn on the train, and what we're assuming is that it had this stop. It's going to want to go straight to the coal drop, just like it normally does. Except, when you turn this on, you'll notice there's a temporary station that got put in. And we can kind of follow this train along. We'll kind of watch what it does here. And it's going to have a bit of a long trip, unfortunately, because I don't have the greatest track record of actually keeping things sustainable on the actual logic of how things run around here. But there are ways for it to turn around and come back, and that's going to be okay. That's a problem for later that we're going to get into. So now it's going to take a path, a little bit long, but it will take a path to come over and get itself refueled. So now we'll just kind of zoom in here. And you can see right here, I have this signal set is basically for a single train, basically, right? So right now, because I haven't filled any rocket fuel into that chest, it's not going to get any fuel, it's just going to stay there, so we're safe to come over. But our blacklisted inserter is now pulling out all fuel that is not rocket fuel for us. I need to get rid of that blinking, it's pissing me off a little bit. So we're going to run a belt line over here to actually hold this, but for now, I'm just going to grab some, and I'm going to put it in, but I'm also going to fix the signal right now because I want this to be able to allow trains to go by, even if there's a train right here. So you can see here, all the coal that was in the train is now out. We look at the fuel. Fuel is now empty. It just has the last bit of coal in there that we can't pull out because it's active. So I'm going to add in the rocket fuel. This is now going to come in here. So you'll see here, we're refueling the locomotive now. And then it's going to head to its next schedule. And now, it's gone. So because of how we interrupted it, it's going to head over to the coal pickup instead. Which, it was already there, it's already full, but it doesn't know that because we artificially paused it. So now it's going to come over here to coal pickup. Now it's going to go over to coal drop, and it's going to continue to do this more efficient pathing right here. And it will only go and do that long, terrible pathing when it actually needs fuel. We can actually mitigate this and save it this massive trip by simply adding tracks here that come back up and connect with this, and then it can just go straight through, come over, hit our refuel station, and go back to its business. That's the idea. So now that we've done that, what we can do is I can now go over to, what was the other one that we had? It was this one, I think. We can go to this one. We can add an interrupt. That same logic is now there. I'll just click it, I'll add it, and what's going to happen here, it's not going to actually trigger this condition until it leaves. Okay, that's something that's very important to understand. It won't actually trigger the condition until it leaves. So right now, it's in a, not necessarily a neutral state, but it's in a stable state. So because it hasn't gone to another train stop, it hasn't done anything. When it wants to go to the next one, this train interrupt will then actually fire and check. It'll interrupt and say, hey, before you go there, do you pass this condition? Do you have less than 3 rocket fuel? You do? Great. I need you to come over here instead. And again, because of how we have our logic set up, this is going to do a little goofy pathing where it's going to go all the way up to a U-turn, the nearest U-turn it's going to find, come back over here, refuel, then it's going to find a way over. I'm hoping that it actually takes this way and does the U-turn there and up. I'm actually kind of curious to see which way it goes, but I won't know until it actually leaves. And because this is a tutorial, I'm actually going to do something that I normally wouldn't do. And I am going to come over here, and I am going to, let's see, there's 23,000 there. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to just delete what's in the storage tank there. In fact, I'll do it twice. I'm going to artificially make some room so that we can watch this happen. So now our crude oil is getting pumped out. You can see there, boom, it's now going for the refuel, and it is going for that one because this is technically a shorter distance than over here. Even though it looks like it's taking a longer route, this is the shortest distance that it calculated to get over here. And then again, because of our logic, which we put in place because we're thinking ahead, and we want to make sure that we have a little bit of redundancy here, we'll put this in for a bit. Now this will come over here, and we will pull out any non-rocket fuel. We can't really see it right now because I'm not close enough. But then you can see here we've got that is now pulling out the solid fuel that's in there, and then when there's a space open, we then insert the new rocket fuel. And because we're doing this at the same time, it isn't at a full fuel state until it reaches the full rocket fuel. Then when it's done, it'll now go back to its original path and do what it's gonna want to do. Which we'll look at the schedule, and it wants to go to oil pickup. But see, now we have a problem. It doesn't want to go to oil pickup because our oil pickup station is not accepting trains this time. So that can be a problem because this can clog up some things if this condition happens, right? For now, I'm just going to go ahead and send it back to the oil drop, and it's going to take not the route that I hoped it would take. I guess it thinks that's just a better route. I don't know. Ever since I started putting in some of these like in-place U-turns, I get some weird behaviors that happen. Not necessarily a bad thing, but it is what it is. So yeah, that is a condition that can happen, which is why we typically would add in a train depot, which we will add later on, but I think for the purposes of this tutorial, we're not going to do that just yet, okay? So we can now essentially add that same logic to all of our trains. So I'll go over to groups, I'll go to my copper trains, I'll just click on any copper train, we'll add the refuel logic, and that's it. That's all you have to do for that. Then we'll do the same thing with our iron ore trains. Click, confirm, done. So we'll essentially start to get a little bit of a queue right here. It will kind of slow down operations for a little bit, but it will be worth it in the end. Now that we've done this, all we have left to do is come over here and run some rail lines out, run some signals and all that, and get a little bit of power with the power lines, and we'll be golden. So if we come back over here, we've got our... we got some pieces in our blueprints that we made, but we didn't make a train rail blueprint. I thought we did. I guess I forgot to do that. So we will make something similar to it, and we'll use that to expand outward. And I think what I'm going to do is I am going to try blueprinting like so between 3 of these. I think this will give us the right spacing that we're looking for. I usually do it from, well, you know what? Why don't we go ahead and do it from that? That should be a good deal. We're just going to call this a straight rail. And we'll do snap to grid relative, just like we showed before. This should be fine as is. So now if I look at this, and I pull it out here, we can see that there would be a slight difference. So then I'll just do 60. No, 56. I used to be better about this. I'm kind of rusty. There we go. That's the effect we're looking for. That's a lot cleaner look to that. So now we can actually keep that. Okay. And now with that done, we can go and pick up the rest of what we need, including the stuff that we need to clear out some of these biters. But before I do that, why don't we go ahead and take one of our wall pieces, and let's go ahead and decide where we want to put this. So to me, one of the more obvious places is this. I think they can definitely get across all this. These are all just kind of tiny pieces there, but what I'd probably just do is just go right here, right up against this wall, like so. Then we'll just kind of shift click there. That's probably good enough as is. Then we'll just kind of fill in that gap right there just a bit, and then go ahead and add our back feed. Comes there. Then again, we'll just kind of fill gap on that side. Ran out of rails again, that's okay, because now I'm going to come over here and we're just going to clean out this nest and then put in the wall. Look at that, with our upgrades to shooting speed, we can now just kind of blitz through this. Just like that, it is now hooked up and ready to go. So it's a little bit over the top, but I've essentially wired up. I'm using this belt as my actual buffer here, so you can see here, I can kind of get a gauge on how much ammo is actually on here, and I'm kind of shooting for that about 500 to be existing at any given time. The chests are just kind of as a little bit of a buffer to give a little bit more time between runs and all that. And then I've got light oil over here, just when the tanks reach, you know, less than 1,000. between the two of them. That's when I want to go and request another one, but honestly, this is going to take a while to go through anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. Then we can kind of sit over here and monitor our red ammo supply. And as we can see here, clearly we are getting more than enough ammo coming in. We haven't even gone halfway through the train, so now you're going to see numbers are going to start to go up as we start to kind of fill in a little bit. You're going to see a lot more solid lines here. So once we get to a point that we're not really able to sustain 500 magazines at a time right here, that's when we want to go ahead and request for another train to come in. Because otherwise we're able to saturate this fully, and all of these will be able to pull off whatever ammo they need for this small section, and we're good. So that takes care of this, and pretty much like all of this area minus what comes up from over here. But I'm starting to see some more chokes down here. In fact, I was kind of hoping that would end somewhere, but it looks like it's not. But this is essentially the same idea, the same philosophy that's going everywhere. Okay, so there was a lot that went on with that, but the video has gone on way too long already. I just wanted to make sure that you could see everything pertinent in this particular episode if you were playing along with the seed. This is a very important step to keep in mind. Training interrupts are going to play a larger role, and there's a lot more to it than what I showed in this one, particularly when we begin to expand into the more space age tutorial stuff that we launch the rocket after our vanilla style is complete here. Again, I just want to apologize for the delay on this video. I had a couple things come up that delayed it. The next one should be on time, and definitely we're going to be launching the rocket and finalizing the last of this tutorial series. And I just want to say, again, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Your support means the world to me, and it lets me do more videos like this now and in the future. Just remember, we are live on Twitch and YouTube every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, always open to questions and dialogue. Would love to see you there. We set a completely unrealistic goal of 1,000 subs on YouTube by the end of the year, so if you could help with that, like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, that would be absolutely incredible. Especially tell me if there's anything in particular that you found helpful or not helpful in these videos. I take feedback and try to improve on all of them, and I would be more than happy to redo anything if you guys feel like it wasn't done well enough. With that being said, I don't want to take up any more of your time, so just once again, seriously, thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching this video and for giving any feedback that you can. I will see you on the next one.